Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here and welcome to my guide to the second coil of Bahamut turn 4, also known as turn 9 on the normal difficulty in Final Fantasy XIV Mobile. It's very similar to the fight in retail, with a few things dialed back to make it more accessible for the normal difficulty. In order to enter turn 9, you will need to clear all of the previous turns and the quests that come with them, as well as have a minimum item level of 120. It drops item level 130 gear as well as the orchestrion roll for this fight, and you can roll on as much loot as you want and run this fight as many times as you want per week. For pre-fight positioning, there's not really anything too important. Designate who the first and second tank are, which will generally be whoever pulls the boss and whoever isn't tanking the boss at the time. The only important thing will be during the Golem phase, where each tank will want to know which one they are taking, so we'll get to that when we get to that. The fight's going to start pretty slow. Nail is just going to do 3 autos, Raven's Claw, 3 autos, then Raven's Claw. You could probably knock 10 to 15% of her health off before you ever actually see a single cast bar. The first cast bar you will see is Raven's Beak, which is a tank buster that places a debuff on the main target. When that debuff expires, it will deal tank damage to that player and any nearby players. So that player should watch the debuff timer, pop a cooldown right before it expires, and stay away from the rest of the party. After applying Raven's Beak, Nail will jump to someone with Raven's Dive, which will jump on a random party member and deal AoE damage. In the mobile normal version, this is not going to be a knockback, so it's not super important that you spread for this. However, I personally recommend to stay out of the middle of the room when baiting the Raven's Dive. This is because after Raven's Dive will be Iron Chariot, a point-blank AoE that will knock you back if it hits you. It won't knock you back very far in this difficulty, so you don't have to worry too much, but you probably don't want to get hit by it. So just dodge roll out of it if you're in the middle of an attack. This is immediately followed up with Thermionic Beam, which is a split damage AoE that will be marked on another party member. The party should stay out of the center of the room while baiting because for Thermionic, it's really simple to have everyone move towards the center of the room to actually stack for it. Being just on the edge of Iron Chariot is fine, it's just easier to get everyone in one position when the middle of the room is open. As the Thermionic hits the party, the tank will explode from the Raven's Beak debuff, and then the boss will dive back to the main tank. After this, Nail will place Stardust on a random player. This will put a meteor marker over their head that, when it disappears, will drop a proximity AoE that does leave behind a meteor. You want to drop this near the edge of the room pretty much anywhere. Center of the room, yeah, you can work with it, but it's definitely not ideal. Immediately after Stardust will be Lunar Dynamo, a donut AoE. If you're close to Nail, it's best to just get into the center of the AoE, but if you are far away, you can actually outrange it. Outranging it like this is also pretty useful because right after Lunar Dynamo will be Meteor Stream, doing 4 AoE dives on random party members. So you're going to need to spread right after the Dynamo resolves anyway. If you have a lot of players inside, not that big a deal. Meteor Stream doesn't hit that hard on normal mode, even 2 stacked will most likely be fine, but just try to spread apart from each other as soon as the Dynamo resolves. After Meteor Stream, Nail will return to the arena with Bahamut Dive, which will actually do tank buster level damage on the main tank, so make sure that they are away from everyone else. At this point, the phase will repeat if the boss is still above 70%. Ideally, the boss falls below 70% right after Bahamut Dive, but with gear, you probably won't even see the Meteor Stream cast at any point. Going into phase 2, Nail will become untargetable in the center of the room and 3 players will be marked with meteors. You want to spread these away from each other and any meteors that were placed on the arena in phase 1. Ideally, there's only 1 meteor, but if the phase went on long enough, you will have a second Stardust. I just hope for your sake that it didn't go on that long. People usually do these on the 3 inner circles, but it's more important that they're spread out than they be in those actual locations, so play a little bit safe here. This will place 3 more proximity AoEs to get out of, which will then leave behind 3 golems that you must defeat before the phases end. It's actually not a DPS check, you can keep killing them into the next phase, but dealing with Nail plus all the other mechanics in phase 3 while dealing with a leftover golem is not usually ideal. Each golem has a different color and shape and has its own mechanics. The green golem is a tank golem. It has a single target tank buster and a cleave tank buster. Ensure whoever was tanking Nail picks this one up and rolls cooldowns the entire time, while facing it away from the rest of the party. The red golem is the AoE golem. This shoots fire puddles and does cascading AoEs from its location. This one's by far the lowest priority. Just make sure you dodge its AoEs and it really does nothing. I do recommend that the second tank actually pick this one up, however. Finally, we have the blue golem, also known as the paralyzed golem. This sucks in nearby players occasionally, as well as any nearby meteors or golems. After some time, it will do a raid-wide AoE paralyze that lasts 30 seconds. Ideally, all 6 non-tank zerg this one down to prevent the paralysis from even going off. Then they can move to killing the green one, then the red one. If any golem gets close to the meteor on the ground, it will consume it and get larger. If eating a red meteor, it will get a damage buff, and if eating a green meteor, it will give it haste. On normal mode, meteors do not need to be consumed by golems and can be avoided completely while you focus on killing the golems. However, in Savage, while I'm making this video before Savage is out, I expected it would be a wipe if you left any meteors up, as it is actually the mechanic in the original version in retail. Whichever golem is closest to meteors can be brought over to them to consume them. If golems ever merge by getting too close, it's also a wipe. If golems ever absorb 3 or 4 meteors in retail, it's also a wipe. So bear that in mind that you want to keep the golems separate and not overfeed them. Some of that just advice for when Savage comes out. This phase ends 90 seconds after the golems become targetable. Unlike in retail, there are no additional meteors or golems. This will be the only set you'll have to deal with. 10 seconds before the end of the phase, Nail will warn you that Mega Flare is coming up. This just does raid-wide damage and transitions you into phase 3. Once Mega Flare goes off, the main tank will get Bahamut dived again, so long as they didn't die during the Golem phase. If your main tank who was holding Nail in phase 1 actually died during the Golem phase, then you better hope that your second tank is aggro, because again, Bahamut dive is going to do tank buster damage. Make sure you're away from the tanks here, basically. Shortly into the phase, Nail will begin casting Heaven's Fall, which will summon a giant column in the middle of the room. This will knock back players from the center. The column instantly kills anyone in the center of the room as well, and briefly becomes a death wall for the next few seconds after it lands. There are 3 different Heaven's Fall patterns. The first Heaven's Fall pattern will be rotating conal AoEs, and these will paralyze if they hit you for all 3 patterns. The second Heaven's Fall will be alternating conal AoEs, and the third Heaven's Fall will be alternating quarter room AoEs, so just make sure you avoid these. Between each Heaven's Fall, Nail summons a Ghost of Mericidia. The second tank should pick this up and roll cooldowns while it's being killed. Can tank it near the boss for extra boss cleave if desired, but be ready because when it dies, it will explode, so everyone will have to run away from it. The Ghost of Mericidia itself does a heavy-hitting tank buster and will chain players when near death as it begins casting an ability. If the cast bar finishes, it will instantly kill all of the tethered players. Otherwise, these tethers will just give stacks of Garrote to whoever is tethered, which don't really matter until they reach 9 stacks. We'll talk about that in a second. Nail herself also applies Garrote Twist, a blue-looking chain debuff on 2 random players between each Heaven's Fall, one at a time. This also applies stacks of Garrote, which instantly kill the player at 9 stacks. When the Ghost of Mericidia is defeated, it drops 3 puddles on the ground that cleanse all debuffs. Players with the blue chain should cleanse as soon as possible. Any leftover puddles can be used to cleanse Garrotes that are getting close to 9, though with the length of the phase, you probably shouldn't have too many people getting close to 9 stacks. This phase will end when Nail goes below 40%. If Nail is in the middle of summoning a Heaven's Fall, it will wait for the whole Heaven's Fall animation before transitioning. And if Nail has 2 Garrote Twists to apply, we'll also finish doing that before phase transitioning as well, giving you time to finish up whatever mechanics you have going before worrying about the final phase. In the final phase, Nail will start with Bahamut's Favor, which will give her a damage buff. Then she will immediately use Bahamut's Claw, hitting the main tank 5 times. Ensure to use a cooldown as soon as you see the damage buff go out. There will also be a Raven's Beak right after the Claw, so back-to-back cooldowns are pretty useful for the main tank. Now during this phase, 3 dragons will use attacks on the party from the outside of the arena. The Ice Dragon will fire an ice attack at every player twice per time it spawns. This applies cold resistance down. If hit by a second ice ball with cold resistance down on, you will instantly die. The Fire Dragon will tether a random player and hit them with an AoE fire explosion twice per time that it spawns. This dispels the cold resistance down. Finally, the Thunder Dragon. This applies the Thunderstruck debuff to a random player. When it expires, it will do an AoE explosion and paralyze and damage anyone nearby. It doesn't affect the marked player itself, but it will definitely be noticeable if you blow up in the middle of the group. Watch your own debuffs and get away from the party if you're targeted with Thunderstruck. The general rule for this phase is to just stay stacked for almost all of it, only stepping away from the party if you have Raven's Beak or Thunderstruck right after a fire tether goes off. If everyone stays stacked, then the fire tethers will just continually explode on everyone, and you'll never have to worry about the Ice Dragon's cold debuff. As a piece of advice, if your healers miss the fire tether and both healers have cold resistance down, have one of them run into the wall and then get rezzed. That way you don't lose both healers to the Ice Dragon back to back at a later point. As for the actual mechanics of the phase otherwise, Nail will dive to a random party member and do Dynamo after the Raven's Beak. Again, stay stacked until the fire tether resolves. The main tank should move towards the wall, and then the Thunderstruck player should run out of the stack. Nail will then do Iron Chariot, and the party will have to move towards the center together, staying stacked until the fire hits. Then, the Thunderstruck moves out. And that covers pretty much most of the phase. At this point, dive bomb markers will start going out. The first dive bomb marker should just bring it to the south side of the room, between the southwest and southeast dragons, which will be diving first. The second dive bomb marker just aimed the remaining dragon away from people as best as possible. Honestly, this never went according to plan in any of the groups that I did. We honestly just saw the AoEs on the ground for the dive bombs and just dodged out of them. So it's really not that hard to do. There is a meteor stream that goes out here, so a few players will get spread damage, but honestly just worry about dodging the dive bombs and you'll probably be okay. After the dragons do their dive bombs, stay away from the main tank because Nail will do Dalamud Dive, doing tank buster damage. At this point, the phase is on repeat until you defeat the boss or Nail defeats you. And that's it for my guide to the second coil of Bahamut Turn 4 on Final Fantasy XIV Mobile on the normal difficulty. I gotta come up with a faster way of saying that. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned. I will be doing guides on the remaining stuff for normal and hopefully Savage Coils and Final Fantasy XIV Mobile, and I'll be doing more coverage both through the Chinese releases as well as the Western release. With that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.